What is up, guys? I am Reed. I am 27, just an average dude. I've made tons of money mistakes in my 20s, and now I want to share everything I've learned to help you take control of your finances and your life. So I am going to say something that might sound a little weird, but I promise you it is true. Investing your first $100,000 honestly kind of sucks. Like, it really does. And I am not saying that to be negative. I am saying it because I've been there, and I think more people need to hear the truth about how frustrating this phase actually is, instead of feeling like something is wrong with them when they don't see instant results. The first 100 grand is almost always the hardest milestone you will ever hit on your journey to building wealth. And I want to tell you why, and more importantly, I want to tell you how I got through it as a normal dude who had zero financial background and started off making every mistake you could possibly make. When I was 22 years old, I had no clue what I was doing with money. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had credit card debt. I was eating out constantly. I was buying stuff I didn't need. I was basically that guy who looked like he had his life together on the outside. But on the inside, I was completely broke and stressed out all the time. I remember one night I was lying in bed doing the math in my head, and I realized I had maybe $2,000 to my name after years of working. That moment honestly scared the hell out of me. Not because I thought I was broke forever, but because I realized nobody was coming to save me. No inheritance, no rich uncle, no finance degree. It was just me and my choices, so I started learning. I read books, I watched videos, I made mistakes, I tried things that didn't work, and slowly I started figuring out what actually moves the needle for a regular guy like me. And one of the biggest lessons I learned is that the first $100,000 is a completely different beast than everything that comes after it. Here's the thing about compounding that nobody really explains to you in a way that feels honest. Compounding is incredibly powerful over long periods of time, but in the early years, it is not going to feel like anything is happening at all. And that is honestly what makes this phase so brutal. You are doing all the right things. You are saving, you are investing, you are saying no to stuff you want, but when you look at your account balance after a year of grinding, it feels like you barely moved. And that is because technically your money hasn't really started working for you yet. It is still mostly you doing the heavy lifting. Let me put some real numbers on this so you can see exactly what I mean. Say you have $10,000 invested and the market has a great year and returns 10%. That is $1,000 of growth, and $1,000 is certainly helpful. It is not nothing, but it is not going to change your life. It is not going to make you feel like your money is working for you. Meanwhile, if you had just worked a little extra or cut back on eating out or picked up a side hustle, you could have contributed that same amount or more through your own effort. And that is exactly the dynamic of the early years. Your contributions matter way more than your investment returns. Your savings rate is doing almost all the work. Your discipline is carrying you. Your ability to live below your means is the engine that is driving everything forward. There is this classic compounding graph that shows it can take roughly 25% of the total time it takes to reach $1 million just to get to your first 100,000. And then the remaining 75% of the wealth builds on the back end. I used to look at that graph and feel both motivated and also a little annoyed because it meant I had a long road ahead of me. But over time, I realized that graph is actually the most encouraging thing you can look at if you understand what it is really telling you. It is telling you that the hardest part is the beginning. And if you can push through the beginning, the rest gets easier, not because you get smarter or luckier, but because math starts working in your favor in a much bigger way. So let me walk you through how I personally approach getting to my first $100,000. And I want to be super transparent about this because I think people assume you need some kind of secret strategy or some fancy Wall Street knowledge to make it happen. You don't. What I did was honestly pretty boring, and I say that as a compliment to myself because boring is exactly what works in this phase. The first thing I did was I got real about my savings rate. I looked at my income and I looked at my expenses and I asked myself one question: how much can I realistically invest every single month without burning out? Not the maximum possible amount that would make me miserable, not the amount that would require me to live like a monk, but the amount I could sustain month after month, year after year without hating my life. For me, that number was about 30% of my income at the time. For you, it might be different, and that is fine. The key is to pick a number and stick to it no matter what. The second thing I did was I automated everything. I set up automatic transfers from my checking account to my investment accounts. Literally the day after payday, I did not give myself the option to decide whether I felt like investing that month. I made it automatic. And this single decision was probably the most important thing I did because it removed my own emotions from the equation. On months where I felt motivated, I would have invested anyway. On months where I felt tired or discouraged or tempted to spend that money on something fun, my automatic system kicked in and took the decision out of my hands. I cannot tell you how much this matters during the early years when the emotional payoff of investing is basically zero. The third thing I did was I kept my lifestyle in check, and this was honestly the hardest part for me personally. When I started making more money at my job, I felt like I deserved to upgrade everything. Better apartment, newer car, nicer dinners, more clothes. And to some extent, that is natural. You work hard, you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But here's the problem. If you let your lifestyle expand at the same rate as your income, you will never build momentum with your money. You will be running in place forever. I had to learn to let some of my raises go straight into my investments before I ever saw them in my checking account. I had to learn that saying no to lifestyle inflation now was going to give me way more freedom later. And that trade-off is not always easy to feel in the moment, but it becomes very obvious in hindsight. The fourth thing I did was I invested in simple, boring index funds. I did not try to pick the next Amazon. I did not try to time the market. I did not chase crypto or meme stocks or whatever the hot new thing was. I put my money into VO, which tracks the SP 500. I put some into SHG for growth exposure, and I put some into SHD for dividends. 3 funds. That is it. No complicated strategies, no day trading, no options. Just consistent monthly contributions into a diversified low-cost portfolio. And honestly, that was more than enough to get me to my first $100,000. I know that sounds too simple to work, and I get why people want something more exciting. But the reality is that for the average person trying to build wealth steadily over time, complexity is actually a disadvantage. The simpler your plan, the easier it is to stick with, and sticking with it is literally the only thing that matters in the long run. Now let me talk about the psychological side, because I think this is where most people actually fall off. The first $100,000 is not just financially hard, it is emotionally hard, and nobody really prepares you for that. You are putting in all this effort, you are sacrificing things your friends are enjoying. You are saying no to short-term pleasures for a long-term goal that feels very far away. And the feedback loop is basically invisible. You don't feel richer. You don't feel more secure. You just feel like you are working hard and not getting anywhere. I remember one year I looked at my investment accounts and I had contributed about $15,000 over 12 months. And my total portfolio growth was maybe $2,000 on top of that. And I felt this weird sense of disappointment, like, wait, I did all that work and the market only gave me $2,000. That is it. And that feeling is dangerous because it can make you want to stop. It can make you want to chase something faster. It can make you want to take bigger risks to feel like you are making progress. But here is what I learned. That feeling is normal. It doesn't mean you are doing something wrong. It means you are in the hardest part of the journey, and the only way out is through. You have to keep showing up. Month after month, even when it feels pointless. You have to keep contributing even when the numbers look small. You have to trust that the process works even when you can see the results yet. Because the people who ultimately build wealth are not the ones who found some secret shortcut. They are the ones who stayed consistent during the boring years when nothing exciting was happening. Let me give you a concrete example of why consistency is so much more important than trying to be clever with your investments. Let's say you have 2 investors. Investor A is super consistent. They invest $500 every single month for 10 years in a simple index fund earning 7% average returns. Investor B tries to time the market. They invest sometimes, but they also pull money out when they get scared and they try to jump in when things look good. Over the same 10-year period, Investor B might end up missing the best days in the market, which historically tend to cluster together. And missing just a handful of those best days can dramatically reduce your overall returns. The consistent investor who just showed up every month without trying to be smart will almost always outperform the person who tried to outsmart the system. This is not a theory, this is math, and it is exactly why I tell people to stop trying to be a finance genius and just focus on being consistent. The boring path is the winning path for 99% of people. Now, once you cross that $100,000 mark, something very real starts to shift. I noticed it when I hit that number for the first time. The money started to feel different, not because I had more of it, but because the market returns started to become noticeable compared to what I was contributing. When you have $100,000 invested and the market returns 10% in a year, that is $10,000 of growth. $10,000 in a single year from just letting your money sit there. That is the first time most people feel like their money is actually working for them. It is not life-changing yet, but it is real. It is meaningful. It starts to give you momentum, and as the portfolio grows, that effect becomes even more pronounced. At $200,000, that same 10% return gives you $20,000. At $500,000, it gives you $50,000. And that is exactly why people say the first 100,000 is the hardest, because once you get past it, the snowball effect becomes real. The money starts to contribute more and more to your overall progress, and your personal contributions, while still important, become less dominant. The mountain that felt like you were pushing a boulder up starts to tilt in your favor. But here's the catch, and I want to be real with you about this. A lot of people never get to experience that shift because they quit before they reach it. They get discouraged during the slow early years, and they stop investing, or they slow down, or they let lifestyle inflation eat away at their savings rate. And I get it. I understand why that happens when you are 3 years into investing and you only have $30,000 to show for it. It is easy to wonder if this whole thing is even worth it. But I promise you it is. The difference between the people who make it and the people who don't is not intelligence or luck. It is the willingness to stay disciplined during the years when nobody is clapping for you. So if you are in that early phase right now and you are feeling frustrated or discouraged or like nothing is happening, I want you to hear this. You are doing the hardest part. You are building the foundation that everything else will be built on. The habits you are wiring into your life right now, the automatic investing, the saying no to lifestyle inflation, the patience. Those are the exact same habits that will carry you to 200,000 and 500,000. 100,000, and eventually to 1 million. If you can master consistency while the numbers feel small, the later stages become dramatically easier. And here is one more thing I want to say. Do not compare your progress to other people. Highlight reels. I see people online talking about how they made $100,000 in a year trading options, or how they got lucky with some crypto play. And it is so easy to look at that and feel like you are falling behind. But those stories are the exception, not the rule. For every person who hit it big on a risky bet, there are 100 people who lost everything. The real path to wealth for normal people like you and me is slow and boring and unglamorous. And that is actually a good thing, because it means the path is available to anyone who is willing to do the work. You don't need to be lucky. You don't need to be connected. You just need to be consistent over a long enough period of time. I want to wrap this up by saying that I genuinely appreciate you being here and taking the time to think about your financial future. Most people go through their entire lives without ever stopping to question their relationship with money. The fact that you are even watching this video and thinking about these things puts you ahead of the vast majority of people. So do not stress about feeling behind. Do not stress about where you are right now. Focus on what you can control: your savings rate, your consistency, your patience. Keep your eyes on the big picture. Keep executing the simple plan, and let time be your best friend. I would genuinely love to hear where you are in your own investing journey, so drop a comment below and let me know. Are you just getting started? Are you closing in on your first major milestone? Or are you already deep into that compounding phase where the snowball is starting to roll? I read every single comment and I try to respond to as many as I can because I love hearing from you guys. That is all I have for this one. As always, peace.